581 Bidding War Part 2. He gritted his teeth and raised the bid again. 1.4 billion taels. At this moment, all of the other guests' jaws dropped. He had actually raised the bid again. This price was enough to buy a pile of high-grade magic treasures. Was there something wrong with his brain? Feng Lu knew that the price was inappropriate, but he was a prideful man. After making the bid, Feng Lu looked at Yi Zhan arrogantly. It was obvious that he wanted Yi Zhan to outbid him. If you have the ability, then come at me. He had already decided that if Yi Zhan continued to raise the price, he would decisively give up. He would make Yi Zhan suffer. Unexpectedly, the corners of Yi Zhan's mouth curved up slightly, and he sat down again, clearly not intending to raise the bid again. What the FCK? Feng Lu was dumbfounded when he saw this. Was he really not going to bid again? 1.4 billion taels going once, going twice. After calling out 3 times, the woman announced, "Congratulations to the guest in Suite 002 for winning the bid for this high-grade magical treasure for 1.4 billion taels of profound silver." When the gavel fell, it was over. This was the rule and Feng Lu understood it very well. At this moment, a sense of regret washed over him. He had played with fire and gotten himself burned. However, this was only a small amount of money for him. As long as his pride was intact, it was worth the money. In Suite 001, Zhu Guoyu looked at the first auction item with a face full of curiosity. She then turned to Yi Zhan and asked, "Teacher, weren't you the one who brought that item for auction? Why did you bid for it?" Was her teacher playing around? Yi Zhan pretended to be momentarily stunned for a moment and asked, "Ah, was it really mine?" Zhu Guoyu was really quite innocent and naive. She nodded and said, "That's right. It was among the treasures that you were sorting out in front of us earlier." Yi Zhan laughed and said, "Ha ha ha. I must have forgotten. Fortunately, I didn't continue bidding. Otherwise, I would have lost a lot of money." Looking at Yi Zhan's smiling face, anyone would be able to figure out that he was simply messing with the bid. After some time, Zhu Guoyu also figured it out. She covered her mouth and chuckled. Feng Xian then chimed in while rolling her eyes, "Teacher, aren't you being too mean to Prince Zonglu?" She had been shocked by his initial bid, and wondered when her teacher had become so rich. Yi Zhan picked up the teacup calmly and drank it happily. "This prince is so kind. He's donating so much money to me in the name of pride. How funny. Let's see how far I can take this." Next up is the second auction item. After hearing the auction hostess voice, Yi Zhan immediately suppressed the smile on his face and even pretended to be very angry about what had just happened. He even glared at Feng Lu. After seeing this, Feng Lu instantly felt refreshed. It was money well spent. Hee. Did this kid want to play with him? He would show him who was the real boss around here. It was just money, and he had plenty of it. Feng Lu was delighted, and drank a cup of tea. He felt that even the tea tasted refreshing now. How comfortable. He pulled the maidservant beside him to sit on his lap. The smile on his face was very wretched. When the second auction item was revealed, the guests once again widened their eyes. It was actually a low-grade spiritual artifact. After sensing the surging power from the auction item, their eyes were glued to it. Every spiritual artifact was extremely precious, and would almost never show up in the secular world. An ordinary major family would at most have 2 or 3, but under normal circumstances, none of them would part with any. At this moment, the guests were deeply astonished. To them, this spiritual artifact could already be considered a priceless treasure. Ordinary magical artifacts were already extremely precious to them, let alone spiritual artifacts. After seeing the purgatory whip on display, the crowd began to rub their hands in anticipation. It was the same for Feng Lu. His eyes were already glowing. This spiritual artifact is called the Purgatory Whip. It's a low-grade spiritual weapon, the auction hostess continued. I won't explain how powerful it is, as everyone can probably tell from its aura. Let's start the bidding now. The starting price is 1 million taels of profound silver. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Zhan made a bid. 1 billion taels. Hearing this, the crowd on the auction floor were once again dumbfounded. Oh my god, he's actually playing this trick again. Is he doing this because he failed in his first bid just now? People could not help but start to make guesses. However, this person's participation also meant that they had to give up on this item. As such, they decided to sit back and enjoy the show. They were certain that the guests in Suite 002 would not let this opportunity pass by. Feng Lu smiled. "Haha, I'm going to make you prostrate yourself in awe today. 1.4 billion taels. HMPH, so you're out of money. Why is it only 1.4 billion? Yi Zan looked at Feng Lu sarcastically and immediately raised the bid again. 1.9 billion taels. Who? The other guests had already begun to take deep breaths to calm their excitement. Heavens, this is the first time I've seen someone pay such a high price for something. If it were me, I'd probably have to spend a few lifetimes to finish spending that amount. At this moment, the atmosphere was boiling over again. This 1.9 billion taels of profound silver, if converted to profound gold, was 19 million taels of profound gold. 582 earth treasure flower. It had to be said that Feng Lu was indeed quite rich. He had bid 1.9 billion taels of profound silver without even blinking. Yi Zan could not restrain his curiosity. He turned around and asked Feng Xian, "Are all the princes of the Yangli Divine Empire so rich?" He heard Feng Xian mutter to herself for a moment before she said, "Every prince has his own territory, and Prince Zonglu's territory is Qingyang City. The annual tax income from such a large city must be a terrifying number, so it's not surprising that he's rich." Hearing this, Yi Zan started thinking. Based on this information, these mortal empires were indeed quite rich. In comparison, as the chief of Cloud Sky Peak, he could not even afford to pay several taels of profound silver back then. That being said, given his current status, making money seemed very easy. As long as he put one of his treasures up for auction, he would be able to earn a fortune, especially with a rich person like this prince propping up the bids. Yi Zan even felt that this person was quite cute. The next moment, his expression changed again. He glared at the prince and said, "I'll bid 3 billion taels." From Yi Zan's appearance, it almost looked like he was exasperated and desperate. Feng Lu laughed when he saw this. HMPH. Small fries are indeed small fries. They are all so impatient. He laughed contemptuously and continued to bid 3.9 billion taels. He wanted to suppress Yi Zan and humiliate him. After seeing this, Yi Zan smiled proudly. Feng Lu finally came to his senses when he saw the smile. "I'm finished. Was this guy trying to trick me?" His expression darkened instantly. Seeing Yi Zan's smug smile, his heart was filled with anger. He now knew that Yi Zan was not after the auction item at all. He was just deliberately raising the price to spite him. Furious, he flipped the table and almost vomited blood. "Damn it, I must know everything there is to know about this person. How dare you trick me? I will teach you the meaning of the word regret." The second auction item was unsurprisingly won by Feng Lu for an exorbitant price of 3.9 billion taels of profound silver. However, Feng Lu was not the slightest bit happy about it. If Yi Zan had not been here, with his status, he could definitely have gotten it for a much lower price. After the two incidents, he was traumatized. He would not be fooled so easily the next time. Yi Zan leaned back into the chair, feeling happy. 3.9 billion taels of profound silver, ha ha ha. This guy is really gullible. He suddenly felt a little guilty. He was not going to make this guy bankrupt, was he? Cough, cough. Definitely not. After all, Xian had just said that all of the princes were extremely wealthy. All Yi Zan had to do now was wait. Once the auction ended, he would receive a huge sum of money. At that time, as long as he gave the money to his disciples, he would be able to reap another multiplied reward from the system. However, the multiplier for the master-disciple system seemed to be lacking in comparison to the couple system. Would it be better to get Yuelin to be his girlfriend and give her the money instead? It did seem rather feasible. There were still different auction items on display on stage, but none of them caught Yi Zan's eye. Finally, when the eighth auction item was brought out, something finally piqued his interest. This was a blood-colored enchanting flower that was sealed in a crystal box. The auction hostess said, "This flower is called the Earth Treasure Flower. It's a middle-grade spiritual herb. Consuming it will cleanse one's meridians and improve one's level of talent. It can even increase one's strength." Earth Treasure Flower. Yi Zan's eyes were fixed on the flower, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "Teacher, this flower doesn't seem to be anything special. Why do you want it?" Zhu Yuyu asked in confusion when she saw that Yi Zan was about to bid for the flower. After all, this flower was only a mid-grade spiritual herb. It might be precious to ordinary cultivators, but it was pretty much worthless to Yi Zan. Everything Yi Zan had given his disciples was better and more precious than this flower. However, what Zhu Yuyu did not understand was that what Yi Zan was really after was not the effects of the herb itself. Yi Zan took a sip of tea and slowly said, "If it's just for consumption, its effects are indeed very ordinary. However, I'm not looking to consume it, but to refine pills with it. This stunned his two disciples. Seeing this, Yi Zan followed up quickly. I once read an ancient book that recorded the refining process of an extremely magical pill called the Feather Transformation Pill. If one can obtain one of these pills, it was said that even a mortal can become an immortal. I don't know how much of what was recorded in that book is true, but I'll probably find out after refining it. It so happens that the main ingredient required to refine this pill is the earth treasure flower. The only problem is that the grade of this earth treasure flower doesn't meet the requirements. However, it should still be enough for me to refine a first-grade feather transformation pill. After hearing this, Zhu Guoyu and Feng Xian were very excited. They said in unison, "Teacher, let's bid for it quickly then." 583 Fruitful Auction. All right. After saying that, Yi Zan once again got up and walked to the balcony of Suite 001. After noticing Yi Zan's figure, the other guests started whispering again. Is he going to cause trouble again? Haha, we don't need to worry about that. We just have to enjoy the show. By now it was evident that whenever Yi Zan bid, the guest in Suite 002 would suffer. Meanwhile, in Suite 002, Feng Lu's face darkened again when he noticed Yi Zan. Is this BSTARD trying to play me again? His subordinate quickly looked at Feng Lu and tried to stop him. Prince Zonglu, let's not act on impulse this time. After all, this guy is obviously trying to set you up. Feng Lu glared at his subordinate and shouted angrily, "Shut up. Do you think I don't know that? No matter what, this time, I will definitely not bid again." When the auction hostess announced the starting price, Yi Zan was also the first to bid. But this time, he did not call out a bid of over 100 million taels. Instead, his bid was only 10 million taels. He did not forget to look in Feng Lu's direction with a teasing expression. When he noticed Yi Zan's expression, Feng Lu became even gloomier. He's actually goading me. Damn it. Does this guy really think that I have the intelligence of a 3-year-old? He would not be fooled this time. However, he only bid 10 million taels this time. What was this kid up to? Feng Lu could not figure it out, but after seeing Yi Zan's teasing expression, he became certain that this was another trap. He did some rough calculations and realized that he had spent almost all of the money he had brought with him. Moreover, there were still other treasures that the auction house had yet to put up for bidding. If he were to spend a large amount now, he would have to spend the rest of the auction watching in jealousy. I must endure this time. The crowd was very surprised. Was Suite 002 not going to rise to the challenge this time? This was not his style. Haha, things are getting more and more interesting. In Suite 003, the lady in the red dress had already figured out what Yi Zan was up to, and the corners of her mouth curled up. She was even more interested in the man in Suite 001. After all, no ordinary person could toy with someone like this. At present, that man had placed such a low bid, yet no one was daring enough to challenge it. Young miss. At this moment, a maidservant next to her spoke up. The VIP in Suite 002 is a prince of the Yangli Divine Empire. He is called Prince Zonglu. However, we don't have any leads regarding the identity of the VIP in Suite 001. That being said, the person in charge of the Qingyang restaurant seems to be very respectful toward this distinguished guest. He must have a great background. Hearing this, the lady in the red dress was momentarily stunned before she waved her hand at her subordinate. All right, I understand. You may leave. After thinking for a while, she began to wonder who this man was. If even Han Sikong is being so nice to him, he must have a powerful background. However, after pondering this matter for quite some time, she still could not formulate any guesses as to who it might be, so she temporarily put this matter aside. As Prince Zonglu did not raise the price, the other guests did not dare to provoke the guest in Suite 001. Hence, the auction hall was unusually quiet. Yi Zan did not know what to say. He had only spent 10 million taels of profound silver to buy this earth treasure flower. This was a pleasant surprise. The prince was probably getting wary after being tricked twice. As the gavel fell, Yi Zan easily got himself a cheap spiritual herb. After obtaining the earth treasure flower, Yi Zan was no longer interested in the next auction items. The auction was coming to an end, and it would soon be time for the main auction highlight, which was the treasures that Yi Zan had prepared. Because the prince was no longer so gullible, Yi Zan did not try to trick him again. After all, he had already fleeced this prince for plenty of money during the first 2 auction bids. This sum would be enough to supply him and his disciples with enough herbs and materials for alchemy for a long time. However, what shocked Yi Zan was that someone else was fighting with the prince for the two final items, to the extent that the bid reached tens of billions. Yi Zan looked in the direction of Suite 003 with confusion. Although he could not see her face clearly, he could tell that she was a beautiful woman. Why did she like these Yama's needles so much? Yi Zan could not think of a reason, so he decided not to think about it too much. In any case, it was profitable for him. Let's leave. We should be able to reach the immortal divine sect in time. After saying that, Yi Zan prepared to leave the auction house with his two disciples. He did not need to worry about dealing with the post-auction procedures, as Han Sikong would handle it. The proceeds from the auction and the herbs he wanted to purchase would be sent to Cloud Sky Peak. After walking out of the auction house and having a brief conversation with Han Sikong, Yi Zan decided to take his two disciples directly to the immortal divine sect. However, at this moment, a loud voice rang out. You provoked me, yet you're delusional enough to think you can escape unscathed. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Lu approached Yi Zan with a furious expression. Yi Zan also turned around and glanced at him indifferently, a calm smile still on his face. Hee, could it be that this foolish prince is trying to lose more than just his money? Yi Zan thought this to himself, but did not say anything. He wanted to see what kind of tricks the prince had up his sleeve. 584 Li Kun. UBSTARD. No matter what status you have today, there's only one possible outcome for you after provoking me, which is death, Feng Lu said angrily. He gestured toward Yi Zan and dozens of armored soldiers surrounded him. This is Qingyang City, which is my territory. Let's see how you get yourself out of this predicament. At this moment, Feng Lu's heart was filled with anger. Were it not for Yi Zan, how could he have lost so much money? There was no way he could accept such a big loss without getting back at Yi Zan, which was why he had immediately used his authority to mobilize soldiers to surround Yi Zan. Furthermore, even more soldiers were rushing over. On the streets, the people were shocked to see this. Aren't these Prince Zonglu's soldiers? Why are there so many of them? What is going on? They were panicking, thinking that some sort of crisis had befallen the city. Outside the auction house, Yi Zan was still watching calmly. On the other hand, Zhu Guiyu and Feng Xian were ready to draw their weapons at any moment. At this moment, a tall and burly man in full armor hurried over to Feng Lu's side. He knelt down on one knee and said, Your Highness, your loyal retainer Li Kun has already brought soldiers to assist you. As soon as he finished speaking, this person erupted with an aura of a middle-stage heaven realm expert. Seeing this scene, the faces of the onlookers turned pale. A middle-stage heaven realm expert. Who is this young man? He actually dared to provoke Prince Zonglu. Everyone was watching with interest, craning their necks over others to try and get a good view of Yi Zan to try and identify him. When Feng Lu noticed Li Kun's arrival, he burst out laughing. General Li, you made it here. With Li Kun present, Feng Lu was full of confidence. He glared at Yi Zan and scolded him. UBSTARD, you won't be able to escape today. I'll capture you, then force your parents to beg for your life. Go, capture those three and tie them up. After hearing Feng Lu's order, the soldiers immediately took action and moved to act. Stop. With an angry roar, Han Sikong rushed out of the auction house, looking very upset. However, after seeing Han Sikong, Li Kun laughed contemptuously and asked, Han Sikong, do you really want to interfere in this matter? Do you think that Qingyang Restaurant's status in Qingyang City is untouchable? You're overstepping your boundaries. Hearing this, Han Sikong's face instantly darkened, but it soon turned bright and he laughed. Ha ha, this is really too funny. Han Sikong's expression was contemptuous. The reason why Qingyang Restaurant could survive in Qingyang City for so long was indeed due to Prince Zonglu's blessings. However, things were different now. If Prince Zonglu and his men wanted to teach the others a lesson, Han Sikong would not interfere. However, this time, they actually wanted to cause trouble for Yi Zan, which was a completely different story altogether. After all, Yi Zan was a supreme realm expert. As long as he could please him, what was there to be afraid of? A supreme realm expert could even easily destroy the Yangli Divine Empire. Li Kun, do you know who you provoked today? It's Yi Zan, Han Sikong said imposingly, then stood in front of Yi Zan to block Li Kun. After hearing this, Li Kun's expression changed drastically despite not knowing who Yi Zan was. However, the prince had asked him to come over to help, so he could not refuse. After hearing Han Sikong's words, Li Kun suddenly felt a little regretful. Could it be that this young man is someone I can't afford to offend? Li Kun thought to himself. He knew Han Sikong very well. As a businessman, he must have his reasons for going against the prince like this. Tisk, who are you trying to scare? Feng Lu walked up fiercely and said directly. I don't care who you are. Since you provoked me, you won't be able to leave. No matter who you ask for help, it won't work. Han Sikong, you have to make your stance clear now. If you continue to oppose me, then the Qingyang restaurant has no reason to exist in Qingyang City. Han Sikong burst into laughter. Ha ha, you're just a frog at the bottom of a well. As a puny prince, who gave you the courage to act arrogantly like this? As soon as he finished speaking, Han Sikong raised his hand and waved. Thousands of cultivators rushed out of the auction house in an instant. Each of these cultivators exuded a threatening aura. Their strength was not something that Feng Lu's soldiers could stand against. Seeing this, Li Kun's face instantly stiffened and he said angrily, Han Sikong, are you planning to go to war today? At this moment, another laugh was heard. Ha ha ha, not bad, not bad, you guys are very good. Yi Zan walked up calmly and glanced at Li Kun and Feng Lu with a mocking expression. He spoke again, originally, I wanted to hurry on with my journey. However, it seems that if I don't make a move today, I won't be able to leave. Forget it, forget it. Since the two of you are asking for it, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Han Sikong's face turned pale. The others might not understand how strong Yi Zan was, but he did. If he were to really make a move, the entire Qingyang city might end up being destroyed. Sir, please calm down. He immediately ran over to dissuade him. It's not a big deal. I'll take care of it for you. Just wait for a moment. 585 The Crown Prince Arrives Part 1. Out of consideration for the safety of the people in Qingyang City, Han Sikong decisively stood up to dissuade them. After all, he was well aware of how powerful Supreme Realm experts were. Yi Zan could easily annihilate Qingyang City in its entirety with a wave of his hand. As a resident of Qingyang City for many years, he had some feelings for the place and was not willing to watch the city be destroyed. Yi Zan glanced at Han Sikong. Seeing that this person was sincere and had helped him a lot, he decided to restrain himself. However, he still said openly, Han Sikong, I'm giving you 3 minutes to settle this. If you can't handle it within this time, then I'll take action myself. Don't worry, sir, I won't let you down. After hearing this, Han Sikong was finally relieved. He was not afraid of Prince Zhonglu at all. The only thing he was afraid of was Yi Zan getting angry. If it really came down to that, how many people would die? The citizens would likely be spared, but these innocent soldiers might be caught in the crossfire simply because they were doing their duty. He rushed over to Li Kun and Prince Zhonglu, and said firmly, I definitely won't let you have your way. If you really have the ability, then come at me. At this moment, the atmosphere was tense, and everyone could tell that a battle could break out at any moment. Neither side was willing to take a step back. Just then, another group of soldiers rushed over, and followed by an extremely luxurious carriage. Everyone could tell that the carriage carried another member of the royal family. What exactly is happening? Why is there another one coming over? The crowd was very surprised and looked over in unison. Everyone's attention was drawn to the newcomer. Who was he? As the carriage came to a halt, a young man alighted from it. He looked poised and dignified. After seeing this person, everyone's expressions changed drastically. The crown prince of the Yangli Divine Empire. Feng Tianyi's expression was dark as he quickly walked towards Yi Zan. When Feng Lu saw that the crown prince had come over, he thought that the latter was here to help him. He smiled so brightly that the corners of his lips reached his ears. Just as he was about to go up and pay his respects to the crown prince walked past him without any hesitation and directly walked over to Yi Zan. Upon seeing this, both Feng Lu and Li Kun's faces turned pale. Greetings, Chief Yi Zan. I am the crown prince of the Yangli Divine Empire. You can call me Tianyi. Feng Tianyi greeted Yi Zan politely when he walked up to him. At this moment, as the crown prince, he was also sweating profusely and feeling extremely nervous. However, he also felt lucky. After all, he had made it in time. Otherwise, their Yangli Divine Empire might have faced complete destruction. Unlike Feng Lu, Feng Tianyi had a much better grasp of the news from the cultivation world. Furthermore, they had met once. It had been totally out of his expectations that Feng Lu would provoke this monster. Brother Tianyi. After seeing Feng Tianyi, Feng Xian immediately smiled and walked over to him. This was her big brother, and she had been on very good terms with him since they were young. He had doted on her very much. Feng Tianyi also rubbed Feng Xian's head and asked with a smile, Xian, we haven't seen each other for a long time. How have you been recently? Feng Xian smiled sweetly and replied, Brother, don't worry. Teacher and Sister Yuyu treat me very well. I've never been better. That's great. I was planning to visit you at Cloud Sky Peak soon, but it seems that there's no need for that now. After saying this, Feng Tianyi's face darkened again. He gritted his teeth in anger when he thought about the disaster that Feng Lu had almost brought upon the Yangli Divine Empire. Did these two brainless people not know how much trouble they had caused? Chief Yi Zan, I'm really sorry. My uncle was indeed reckless and rude just now. I would like to apologize on his behalf. Yi Zan looked at Feng Tianyi calmly, but he was inwardly shocked. It had not been long since they last met, yet the fate energy surrounding the Crown Prince had actually become far more dense. This is quite interesting. If he rises to power, the Yangli Divine Empire will welcome an era of rapid development and prosperity. Before Yi Zan could say anything, Feng Lu interjected with an annoyed expression, what are you doing? Don't you think you're on the wrong side? His heart was filled with anger. He did not understand why the Crown Prince would help Yi Zan at this time. He was Feng Tianyi's uncle. Could it be that this young man's background was really so terrifying? After hearing what Feng Lu said, Feng Tianyi looked at him and said mercilessly, Shut up. Who are you to call me Yer? Address me by my proper title. At that moment, Feng Lu broke out in a cold sweat. Feng Tianyi's meaning was very clear. He was the Crown Prince of the Yangli Divine Empire, and the future emperor. Under normal circumstances, even if he was a prince, he would still have to bow to the Crown Prince with respect. However, because they were usually very easygoing, they did not pay much attention to etiquette between members of the royal family. In this situation, their relationship was null and void, and only Feng Tianyi's status as Crown Prince mattered. Feng Lu was even more confused. Feng Tianyi had said such harsh words to him because of Yi Zan. 586 The Crown Prince Arrives Part 2. Feng Lu was forced to admit defeat. He lowered his head and said to Feng Tianyi, Greetings, Crown Prince. He bowed respectfully, but his expression was extremely dark. Li Kun was also very shocked at this time. He suddenly realized that the young man that his men had just surrounded was really an existence that he could not provoke. At this moment, he felt immense regret. He looked at Feng Lu unhappily. Although he personally had not made a move, his and his legion's presence here already spoke volumes. There was no way to explain their way out of this situation. Greetings, Crown Prince. I just happened to come here to support Prince Zonglu. This matter has nothing to do with me. Li Kun was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He immediately tried to clear his name. At the very least, he did not want to lose his life or even his position as general. Ha ha ha. Feng Tianyi laughed and stared at the two of them coldly. Do the two of you even know who you provoked today? Hearing this, the two of them immediately shivered and said, We're not sure, who is he? Hearing this, Feng Tianyi walked toward them and said coldly, He's the chief of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect's Cloud Sky Peak. You two really have guts, don't you? Of all people to provoke, why did you have to provoke a Supreme Realm expert? Are you two in a hurry to visit the Netherworld? When they heard Feng Tianyi reveal who Yi Zan was, everyone present was speechless and shocked. FCK. That young man is actually Sword Immortal Yi. He's so young. They had long heard of Yi Zan's fame, but there were very few people who could recognize him, which was why they were so shocked when they heard Feng Tianyi reveal Yi Zan's identity. Feng Lu's expression was ashen, and he fell to the ground weakly. This can't be happening. The guy the first provoked is actually a Supreme Realm expert. At that moment, Feng Lu wanted to bang his head against a wall. Li Kun's face was also very pale. He wanted nothing more than to beat Feng Lu up for dragging him into this matter. What was a Heaven Realm expert like him going to do against a Supreme Realm expert anyway? Throw eggs at him. He was like an ant in front of Yi Zan. Li Kun knelt down in front of Feng Tianyi and begged, Crown Prince, you have to save me. I have parents and children to take care of, and it was Prince Zonglu who summoned me here. I didn't know that this was the legendary Chief Yi Zan. I'm begging you, Crown Prince. I have worked hard for many years for the Yangli Divine Empire. You have to save my life. I still have much more to give to the Empire. At this point, he was kneeling down and begging for mercy. In fact, it would be funny if anyone in his position did not do the same. It was a matter of life and death, and he had not been the main perpetrator anyway. Li Kun. After seeing Li Jun expose him without any hesitation, Feng Lu gritted his teeth in anger, but before he could say anything, Li Kun quickly scolded him. You dare to criticize me? I've treated you as my good friend, but you called me here to commit suicide. Do you think I'd forgive you? You're dreaming. No matter what, he was still a general who held military power. Were it not for the summons from a member of the royal family, and the fact that his legion was garrisoned here, he would not have come out to help. At the same time, the beautiful woman in the red dress from Suite 003 was also watching this scene from inside the auction house. So he is Sword Immortal Yi. Hong Shu mumbled to herself. She suddenly recalled something and was even more shocked. She did not expect that a peerless genius would appear in the East Continent in such a short time. He had already broken through to the Supreme Realm at such a young age. With a little more time, would it not be possible for him to reach the sealed immortal realm? Hong Shu took a deep breath to calm herself down. Young miss, should we intervene to forge a good relationship with Yi Zan? He might be able to help us investigate this strange power. The subordinate beside her looked at Hong Shu and made a suggestion, but Hong Shu shook her head and replied, there's no need for that now. I can tell that we'll definitely meet him again in the future. Let's leave first. As soon as she finished speaking, they left and disappeared from the auction house. Looking at Li Kun, who kept begging for mercy, Feng Tianyi was extremely angry at this time. He also felt a little bad. Although Li Kun was indeed in the wrong today, considering his long period of service and his position as general, it would be inappropriate to fire him for something that Feng Lu had caused. Feng Tianyi said coldly after a long sigh, Li Kun, I believe you are also aware that your status and authority comes from the Yangli Divine Empire. The only person you have to obey is the emperor, not Prince Zonglu. I can let you off for today's matter. If there's a next time, you should be clear about what will happen, right? Li Kun was drenched in cold sweat after hearing Feng Tianyi's words. He understood what Feng Tianyi meant. 587 asking for help. Feng Tianyi's words had undoubtedly hit hard. After all, it was the emperor's orders that he had to follow, not Prince Zonglu. He was a general who held military power, but he was not allowed to mobilize the army without an order stamped with the royal seal. This subordinate understands, Li Kun replied in a trembling voice. Even though he was terrified, he was also extremely grateful that the crown prince had let him off this time. If the crown prince did not show any mercy this time, not only would he lose his position as general, but he might also lose his life. Feng Tianyi stared at Li Kun, and then returned to Yi Zan's side, thinking about how to deal with this matter. After a while, Feng Tianyi said sincerely, Chief Yi Zan, General Li Kun has realized his mistake. Could you spare him this time? After he finished speaking, Feng Tianyi winked at Feng Xian. Sister, your brother treated you well in the past, didn't he? I need your help now. As Yi Zan's disciple, it would be much more effective if she was the one persuading him. Feng Tianyi was so anxious that he was sweating. His status as crown prince was worthless in this situation. Actually, even if the emperor came here in person, it would not change a thing. If Yi Zan really did not want to, he could easily ignore his request without consequence. Were it not for the fact that his sister was Yi Zan's disciple, Feng Tianyi would not have even considered letting Li Kun off. After all, he might get himself into trouble if he was not careful. Feng Xian noticed her brother's intentions and understood what he wanted her to do. Although she did not want to interfere with her teacher, she also wanted to help her brother out a little. After a while, Feng Xian pulled on Yi Zan's arm and said tentatively, Teacher, although Li Kun did participate in this matter, he didn't overtly take action. Could you let him off this time? Hearing this, Yi Zan rubbed Feng Xian's head in a pampering manner and replied, All right, I'll agree this time. Yi Zan was not bothered about Li Kun at all. After all, the one truly at fault for today's matters was Prince Zonglu. However, at this moment, Yi Zan looked at Feng Xian and continued, Xian, being kind and compassionate is indeed a good quality, but at times, it can also be a bad thing. I can let Li Kun off today, but there's something you must be clear about. After hearing this, Feng Xian tilted her head to look at her teacher, feeling somewhat puzzled. What is it, teacher? Yi Zan emphasized his next words clearly. Remember this. Sympathizing with an enemy is hurting yourself. Feng Xian's trembled when she heard that. She nodded affirmatively to indicate that she had taken his words to heart. The path of cultivation was already very difficult. If you sympathized with an enemy, He might stab you in the back the very next day, or return kindness with evil when he became strong enough. Teacher, I understand. Hearing this, Yi Zan was satisfied. These things were important learning opportunities for his disciples. In any case, both Prince Zonglu and Li Kun did not pose a threat to him at all, and could be erased from existence with a wave of his hand. However, the situation offered an opportunity for his disciples to see the evils of this world. His two disciples were still too innocent. He was also afraid that they would be too kind to their enemies and end up harming themselves or being taken advantage of. After Yi Zan finished explaining this matter, he said expressionlessly, "You should be glad that Xian interceded for you today. Let's drop this matter." But, as he spoke, Yi Zan stared straight at Prince Zonglu, and the corners of his mouth curled up. This guy was both a good and a bad guy. He was annoying and trying to cause problems for him, but this guy had also made him rich. Perhaps this was an opportunity for him to earn even more money. After all, it was this person's own fault for coming to his doorstep for some fleecing. Yi Zan walked up to the trembling Li Kun and said to him, "You should leave this place first." Hearing this, Li Kun's face instantly lit up with joy. The stone that had been weighing upon his heart was finally lifted, and he quickly replied, "Thank you, Chief Yi Zan. I'll leave immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Kun hurriedly left with his soldiers, not daring to stay for even a moment. FCK. Feng Tianyi was dumbfounded by this scene. He ran away so quickly. As a general who guarded the borders, he actually fled so quickly in an emergency. If the borders were in danger, could he really be relied on? Feng Tianyi was in disbelief. However, after thinking about it from another perspective, he felt that this was very normal. Li Kun might not be afraid of an enemy army, but a Supreme Realm expert was another matter altogether. No matter how many troops he had under his command, fighting a Supreme Realm expert was no different than hurling eggs against a rock. Even a Mystic Lord Realm cultivator would probably be scared out of their wits if they knew that they had angered a Supreme Realm expert. At this moment, Yi Zan stared at Prince Zonglu, smiling. After a while, he said, "Prince Zonglu, weren't you very arrogant just now? Were you not going to punish me for going against you?" After hearing this, Feng Lu wanted to bury his head in his knees. He waved his hands and said, "No, no, no. In front of you, how could I be so arrogant?" Feng Lu wished he could dig a hole and bury himself in it. If he had known that Yi Zan was a Supreme Realm cultivator, he would have never done such a thing. After all, he did not want to die yet. 588 played for a fool. Feng Lu had thought that he would be able to win this time. He believed that, as long as he caught Yi Zan, he could blackmail the latter's family to make up for the money he had just lost during the auction. However, Yi Zan's identity made this impossible. Even if Yi Zan was someone who could be captured, was he going to blackmail the Great Wilderness Divine Sect? Hell no. Yi Zan frowned and said in an unpleasant tone, "Oh. Is that so? That's not what you said just now. Chief Yi Zan, I'm really sorry. I didn't know any better and offended you. Please state your request. No matter what it is, I'll do my best to make up for the offense. I hope you will be merciful and let me go. I truly am sorry." As he spoke, Feng Lu was already in tears. He had really poked the bear this time. Hearing this, Yi Zan knew that his opportunity to earn big had arrived. This hapless prince was truly a god of wealth. After a moment of silence, Yi Zan said, "If I'm not mistaken, you won the bids for a large number of auction items just now, right?" The meaning of his words were clear, and Feng Lu immediately took out the auction items he had won. "Chief Yi Zan, these are the auction items. Consider it a small token from me." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Lu handed Yi Zan the storage bag that contained the items with both hands outstretched. His heart ached terribly. These items were bought with his hard-earned cash, yet they were handed over to someone else before he could use them. However, he had only himself to blame for this predicament. Himself and his goddamn pride. Why was an expert like Yi Zan out here in the secular world? Should he not be cultivating in seclusion on Cloud Sky Peak? Feng Lu had many grievances, but could not voice them. It was no wonder Han Sikong had been so protective of this person at the beginning. It was not without reason. A Supreme Realm expert could deal with both him and the Empire with a wave of his hand. Yi Zan was still smiling calmly. He took the storage bag from Feng Lu and looked at it. He realized that most of the items he had put up for auction had been bought by this wealthy prince. "Fine. Since you are Xian's uncle and you have realized the error of your ways, I'll let you off today." Upon hearing this, the tension within Feng Lu's heart finally relaxed. His clothes were already soaked in cold sweat. He was already a man past his prime, but this was the first time he had shamelessly begged for forgiveness like today. When he saw Feng Xian standing beside Yi Zan, his heart immediately became even more bitter. If he had noticed Feng Xian from the start, this matter would never have gotten this far. At the thought of this, Feng Lu burst into tears. He had truly lost big time today. Why did he have to assume that she was a servant? The fact that Feng Xian was Yi Zan's disciple was common knowledge within the royal family, as it was a big deal. He had only himself to blame for his pride and carelessness. Yi Zan patted Feng Lu's shoulder and said with a smile, "There's something you should know. Chief Yi Zan, I'm all ears. Actually, most of the auction items you won belong to me. In a sense, I have to thank you for giving me all this money to spend." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan could not help but laugh out loud. Then, he left with his two disciples, leaving the hapless Prince Zhonglu behind. Upon hearing this, Feng Lu felt the world spin around him. He coughed a few times before falling to the ground. Prince Zhonglu. His guards anxiously hurried over to help him up. At that moment, Feng Lu felt as if his heart had been hammered with a giant nail. He was so angry that he almost fainted. The money that he had worked so hard to save up had been given away just like that. Yi Zan had been playing him for a fool the whole time. He was just deliberately raising the price, which was why he kept provoking him. Furthermore, he had danced to Yi Zan's tune like an idiot, and had even been happy when he won those bids. He was really stupid. He had really been taken for a ride thanks to his pride. When Feng Lu recovered, he felt that the whole world was gray. Fortunately, these treasures had at least saved his life. Otherwise, he would have died right here and now. Yi Zan deliberately stopped and said when he passed Feng Tianyi, "Tianyi, you're quite capable. I reckon that it won't take long for the Yangli Divine Empire to ascend under your leadership." After hearing Yi Zan's words, Feng Tianyi was also very excited. He said, "Thank you, Chief Yi Zan. You think too highly of me." Yi Zan nodded, and then looked at Han Sikong and said, "This time, the matter was resolved thanks to you. If it wasn't for your help, I would have had to act." 589 Monan Part 1. Hearing Yi Zan's words, Han Sikong smiled helplessly. "Sir, please don't scare me." However, he was pleased that the situation had not escalated further. "Sir, I'll send the money from the auction to Cloud Sky Peak along with the herbs. Is that okay?" "Sure thing. Then, we'll be leaving first." After saying this, Yi Zan brought Zhu Guiyu and Feng Xian away, beginning their journey toward the Immortal Divine Sect. Quite a bit of time had passed, so he was not sure if the situation over there had been resolved. If they had already finished fighting, they would probably only be able to pick up the scraps and do some cleanup work. Still, it would be worth the visit if the fighting had not ended. At this moment, the Immortal Divine Sect was already under fire. Aolei roared, "Go! Kill them all!" Upon hearing this order, many of the sect's cultivators launched their attacks, shattering the sect's guardian formation. When this happened, the sect's cultivators that had surrounded the Immortal Divine Sect all charged in. However, before they could make it in, the guardian beast of the Immortal Divine Sect woke up. It was a descendant of a Qilin. Moments later, it roared fiercely and rushed to meet the incoming cultivators. Evil creature. Aolei instantly launched an attack. Using the Great Desolation technique, he pulled the Qilin into his domain, greatly weakening its attacks. "Oh woo!" The Qilin roared again, and then tried to swipe Aolei with its hooves. Aolei was not afraid of it at all, and drew his sword and unleashed another attack to meet it. The Qilin's hoof was chopped off by Aolei's sword as soon as the two made contact. Ah, he's also a Supreme Realm expert. Everyone widened their mouths in shock. At this moment, they finally discovered that Aolei had reached the Supreme Realm. Even Yi Feng was extremely shocked. In reality, Aolei had reached the Supreme Realm a long time ago, but had never revealed it. Even when the ancient tomb opened, he had not participated in the exploration, choosing instead to temper his cultivation in seclusion. However, at this moment, he was no longer hiding his cultivation level. Damn it! From a secret room in the Immortal Divine Sect, an old man with a head full of white hair frantically flew into the sky. When he saw the people from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect killing his sect's cultivators, he was enraged. "Aolei, what gave you the courage to attack my Immortal Divine Sect?" This old man felt extremely angry and confused. Why would Aolei and the forces of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect suddenly show up here? He had been cultivating in seclusion for many years, and had no clue as to what was going on in the outside world. Were it not for the fact that the immortal divine sect was under attack, he would not have shown himself. Upon seeing this old man, Aolei's expression changed. This old man was still alive. Yi Feng was equally shocked. He could not believe his eyes. They were no strangers to this person. Back then, when the immortal divine sect had picked a fight with Aolei, and the latter had also attacked the sect, it was because of this old man's appearance that the matter was suppressed and resolved. This person was Mo Nan, a cultivator of the same generation as Yi Feng. He was a middle-stage Supreme Realm cultivator, which was considered very terrifying. At that time, perhaps only Chief Tianzan could defeat him. No one else dared to pick a fight with him. The reason why Aolei had dared to attack the immortal divine sect back then was due to Chief Tianzan's support. However, now that Chief Tianzan was no longer here, there was no one in the Great Wilderness Divine Sect who could defeat Mo Nan. When he had planned to come here and eradicate the immortal divine sect, Aolei had mistakenly believed that Mo Nan had died a long time ago. Who would have expected that the old man was still alive and well? Furthermore, in this situation, it was a little difficult to stop halfway. Yi Feng went over to Aolei and said softly, "Aolei, why don't we just drop this matter? After all, this old man is really too strong, and my senior brother Tianzan is no longer with us." Hearing this, Aolei was very unwilling, especially after recalling that Gao Shun had been killed by these people. His fists were tightly clenched. "Don't even think about it. Today's matter will definitely not end here. We must eradicate everyone from the immortal divine sect to avenge Gao Shun." Even after seeing Mo Nan appear, Aolei still did not back down, his aura surging once more. "Mo Nan, you old cur, there's no need to exchange words pointlessly. No matter what, I'm going to destroy the immortal divine sect today." As soon as he finished speaking, Aolei immediately launched his attack. Mo Nan was utterly shocked when he saw this. Only 100 years had passed, yet that young brat from back then had already reached the Supreme Realm. However, when he realized that his sect's cultivators were still being slaughtered, he trembled with anger. He forced Aolei to retreat with a palm strike and asked angrily, "Aolei, there doesn't seem to be any enmity between our sects, so why are you attacking us? The matter from back then had already been resolved. Are you not afraid of retribution?" "Ha ha ha, retribution, if I'm not afraid of anything. Besides, this matter started because of your sect. Your people bullied our sect's disciples, and even killed my junior brother cruelly." After saying this, Aolei felt even more grief and indignation, and he roared with an expression that was laced with killing intent. "No matter what, I have to kill all of you today." What? 590 Mo Nan Part 2. Hearing that someone from his sect had actually killed Aolei's junior brother, Mo Nan's face paled. Which of his junior brothers did that person kill? Mo Nan felt like dragging that person out and giving him a good scolding. Who was so bold as to incite trouble for the immortal divine sect like this? In the past, someone from the immortal divine sect had severely injured one of Aolei's disciples. As a result, Aolei had come to the immortal divine sect for revenge. Chief Tianzan had also been present to watch over Aolei. Fortunately, that matter had been resolved in the end. He had personally apologized to Aolei and had even healed his disciple's injuries. However, someone from the sect had killed one of Aolei's junior brothers. This time, it would probably not be so easy to deal with. Mo Nan was furious. Aolei did not stop despite being pushed back. He swung his sword again at one of the immortal divine sect's peaks. Mo Nan dodged the attack, and quickly tried to mediate the matter. "Aolei, can you stop for a moment and let me figure out what's going on? I'll definitely investigate this matter properly and will hold that person accountable." The current situation was very dangerous for the immortal divine sect. He was being held back by Aolei, and Yi Feng was watching him closely, so he had no way of saving the sect's disciples. Mo Nan's fury was ignited as well. He was trying to be accommodating, but it did not seem that Aolei had any intention of stopping. "Damn it, Aolei, do you think I'm afraid of you?" As soon as he finished speaking, a full-force attack of a middle-stage Supreme Realm expert was unleashed, forcing Aolei to retreat several steps. "Aolei, had it not been for Tianzan, would you still be alive today?" Mo Nan then said viciously, "A tree that's more than 10 meters tall must have grown from his grave, right? I'll say this one last time. Get out of here right now and I can let this matter go. Otherwise, be prepared to bear the consequences." Monan's heart ached as he witnessed his sect's cultivators being killed one after another in front of him. How long had it taken to establish and grow the sect? The foundations of the sect were being torn down before his very eyes right now. Many of the sect's cultivators had already been killed, and there did not seem to be any experts around to protect them. Monan was the only one, and he was being held back by Aulay. If this continued, the immortal divine sect would be destroyed sooner or later. Looking at the situation, Monan had no choice but to compromise. Even if they already had a great number of casualties, if he could get Aulay to leave now, it was still better than being completely destroyed. At this moment, Aulay went over to Yifeng's side. His expression was unusually grave. After those few moves he had exchanged with Monan, he had a grasp of how powerful Monan was. Just as he was about to continue the war of words with Monan, a voice was heard. "Senior brother Aulay, I'm here." Aulay turned around and, to his surprise, saw Gao Shun flying over as fast as he could. At the sight of this, all of the cultivators from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect who were still fighting were dumbfounded. "Ah, is that a ghost?" Aulay was also extremely shocked. He stared at Gao Shun with disbelief and asked, "Junior brother Gao, you're still alive? Was this real?" After all, he had witnessed Gao Shun's life force fade with his own eyes. Should he not be dead? Why was he here? Furthermore, why did he look perfectly fine? Not only did he come back to life, but his cultivation had also increased and he looked as if he had become 10 years younger. What was going on? Once he reached Aulay's side, Gao Shun hurriedly told them what had happened to him earlier. "Senior brother Ao, junior brother Yizan gave me an immortal grade recovery pill. That's how I managed to be revived, and even obtained many benefits in the process." This, Chief Yizan saved Chief Gao Shun. Everyone from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect was stunned. Heavens, Chief Yizan was actually so rich. He actually gave away an immortal grade recovery pill. Also, weren't those two at odds with each other? At this moment, Aulay was also very puzzled. Why would Yizan be so generous to actually take out an immortal grade recovery pill to save Gao Shun? He was also aware of the bad blood between them and the two peaks that had been ongoing for countless years now. Of all the people, Yizan should have been the last person to have been willing to pay such a price to save Gao Shun. That being said, how amazing was that pill? It even managed to bring Gao Shun back to life. After Gao Shun appeared, the fighting came to a sudden halt, as everyone was looking at him in a daze. Monan's face darkened when he finally figured out what had happened. "You guys are a piece of work. In the end, you were just looking for a random reason to attack my sect, right?" Monan, who had originally thought that he was in the wrong, became furious because Gao Shun, who was supposed to be dead, was still hale and hearty. Things had suddenly become different. "Aulay, I'll definitely teach you a lesson today and show you that the immortal divine sect should never be provoked." With those words, Monan instantly rose into the air, and thick dark clouds condensed in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. A bolt of purple lightning flashed past, and the Qilin, whose left hoof had been chopped off, instantly recovered and appeared below Monan. Monan then landed on the Qilin's back, erupting with a terrifying amount of spiritual power that made the surroundings tremble. SHT. Aulay's face paled. It seemed that Monan was determined to fight them to the death today. He turned around without any hesitation and shouted, "Everyone, heed my order. Leave this place." As soon as he finished speaking, Aulay took out a jade stone that was emitting 7-colored light and activated it. Great Desolation Technique. Seeing this familiar light, the cultivators from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect were very shocked. After all, it had been a long time since Aulay had used this stone. 591 Yizan's arrival. In complete contrast to before, Aulay actually used a piece of Great Desolation jade stone to activate the 7-colored divine light. Augmented by the Great Desolation Jade Stone, the power of his attacks were increased 100-fold. Even Yi Feng felt his heart palpitate when he sensed this. After seeing that the two Supreme Realm experts had already started fighting, the weaker cultivators began to back off to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Despite Monan's powerful attacks, Aulay showed no fear at all. After all, what had already happened, so there was no room for regret. The grudges between the two sects already could not be reconciled. Boom. Monan mobilized all of the power in his body and poured it into the Qilin's body, helping it to launch an even more powerful attack. After the Qilin roared, it unleashed another extremely forceful attack. At this moment, Aulay also shouted loudly, "Suppress." As soon as he finished speaking, He activated the Great Desolation at full power, dispelling the attack. From the start of the battle until now, the two sides had yet to determine who was stronger. The fact that Aulay could resist Monan, despite the latter being stronger than him, showed how powerful the Great Desolation technique was. Moreover, the Great Desolation technique was not in its complete state. If he could piece together the complete Great Desolation technique, it would definitely be considered the strongest cultivation technique in the East Continent. After dozens of exchanges, Aulay felt that he could not hold on much longer due to his lacking cultivation level. He was not only up against Monan, but also the Qilin. Hee, Aulay, you're approaching your limits, aren't you? The gap in our strength is not something you can bridge just because you have the Great Desolation technique. You'd best prepare yourself for the afterlife. Monan laughed impudently, believing that victory was imminent. Now that things had come to this, even if Yifeng and Gao Shun joined forces to attack him, it would not matter. Oh no, senior brother Ao is likely to lose. Gao Shun had been secretly storing up power in order to help. However, at this moment, a huge sword descended upon Monan from the sky, exuding terrifying sword intent. Monan's face instantly paled as he dodged. The Qilin beneath his feet was unable to resist the huge sword and died a violent death. His heart trembled. As that, a divine rank sword. The simple and ancient-looking sword made everyone's heart palpitate, and for a brief moment, it was as if the sword was the only thing that existed in this world. Dark clouds formed in the sky, wind surged, and lightning flashed. Killing intent filled the air. The god's sword had made its appearance, and even Monan, a middle-stage Supreme Realm expert, was too stunned to move. Which expert does this sword belong to? Everyone searched the sky to find the owner of the sword. Monan was terrified by the Qilin's death. As the immortal divine sect doomed to perish today. Even if he felt unwilling about this matter, he knew that this sword was not something he could contend against. The owner had not even shown himself, yet the sword itself had suppressed him. Aulay and the others were also similarly shocked. Was this expert here to help them? Who was he? The only one with a divine rank sword was Yizan, and they had all seen the Cloud Heaven sword. This was definitely not the same sword. While everyone was feeling very curious about this, a handsome man in a white robe appeared. He landed on the god's sword, which then slowly descended. Yizan was calm and looked at Monan mockingly. Haha, it's a good thing I came in time, he muttered to himself as he observed the situation. The fiery phoenix divine power was really powerful. With it, he had covered such a long distance within half a day. It was unlikely that there was anyone in the East Continent that could keep up with him now. After seeing Yizan appear here, everyone's jaws dropped. Oh my god, the sword really belongs to him. Quick, give me a slap and wake me up from this dream. Can he actually have two divine rank swords? Gao Shun similarly felt very shocked at this time. He was also inwardly grateful that their relationship had improved from before. Otherwise, he would probably have been beaten to a pulp at some point. 592 Fast like a phoenix. FCK. I definitely can't compare myself to this guy, or else I'll die of jealousy, Gao Shun thought to himself. Yizan was still observing the situation around him while hovering on the god's sword. He then waved his hand, and teleported his two disciples to his side. Both of you head over to your martial uncle's side and stay there. Don't wander around. Alright, we understand. Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian nodded. Their faces were pale. After all, they had been traveling with their teacher this entire time. However, the speed at which they had been flying was too terrifying. This was an experience that they had never experienced before, and even they felt slightly dizzy after the trip. After watching his two disciples move to safety, Yizan fixed his eyes on Monan. May I ask who you are? Monan's face was drained of blood, and his legs seemed to be trembling. He felt a strong sense of danger from Yizan. It was almost like he was standing in front of Chief Tianzan back then. Yizan simply replied, I am the disciple of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect's Chief Tianzan, and the current chief of Cloud Sky Peak, Yizan. Hearing this familiar name, Monan's heart trembled. You're Tianzan's disciple. Monan stared unblinkingly at the young man before him. He had never expected this young man to be Tianzan's disciple. He even felt that the sense of danger this young man exuded was more threatening than Tianzan's back then. Monan had already been suppressed by Tianzan then. Was he now going to be suppressed by Tianzan's disciple as well? The more he thought about it, the more unwilling he was. Monan was already gritting his teeth, exuding an even more powerful aura. The shame and embarrassment he felt was unbearable. He was unwilling to give up, so he channeled all of the spiritual power in his body. With a loud boom, a bolt of purple lightning flashed across the sky. As that, a heaven-grade divine power. The crowd was shocked and looked in his direction. Right after the purple lightning appeared, Monan's aura changed drastically, as if he had become a completely different person. His hands were slowly moving, and lightning kept flashing around him. Moments later, countless lightning bolts fell and formed a formation around him. I don't care who you are, but since you dared to invade my immortal divine sect, I'll make sure that this becomes your burial place. With the aid of the lightning formation, the aura emanating from Monan grew even more terrifying, instantly forcing everyone nearby to retreat. However, Yi Zan was still standing firmly on the God's sword. He leapt forward with a calm expression and rushed into the lightning formation that Monan had set up. Good. Let me see the power that gave you the courage to say such words. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan activated his boundless palm technique, and a huge palm imprint condensed in front of him. In the next moment, a long lightning dragon condensed and charged directly at the palm imprint that Yi Zan had condensed. Boom! Accompanied by a loud roar, energy shockwaves swept out, but the two people hovering in the air were still standing steadily in place, having not even moved a single step backward. Yi Zan also began to get serious. He reached out and touched the lightning around him, thinking to himself, this lightning formation is indeed powerful. The divine power Monan had used was the infinite lightning bolt formation, a secret technique from ancient times. After activating this technique, it would form a lightning formation around the user. If an enemy barged into this formation, they would be attacked by endless lightning bolts, which were very powerful. Furthermore, it would also enhance the strength of its user to a certain extent. Brat, you're quite courageous. You actually dared to enter my lightning formation headfirst. Monan looked at Yi Zan sarcastically, as if he was looking at a dead man. This person's combat strength was quite good, but he was too arrogant. In this lightning formation, I am invincible. No matter who comes to save you, it won't help. With those words, Monan promptly launched an attack, hurling a fist that was crackling with lightning. Because he was trapped in the formation, the attack reached Yi Zan almost instantaneously. However, in terms of speed, Yi Zan had the fiery phoenix divine power. Haha, do you think you're very fast, stinky old man? Yi Zan laughed sarcastically. Before Monan's giant lightning fist could land on him, he disappeared without a trace. One could see blurry red streaks in his wake. When Yi Zan's figure reappeared, he was already outside the formation. What? No way. Monan's expression changed drastically, unable to believe what he was seeing. Yi Zan could actually come and go as he pleased in the lightning formation like a fish in water. 593 going all out. It was one thing for him to be able to travel through his formation at will, but this brat was actually faster than him. Monan was dumbfounded, and asked sternly, how did you do it? Yi Zan's eyes were filled with a mocking smile as he replied calmly, do you think it's difficult? What do you mean by that? Then, as the crowd watched in amazement, he rushed into the formation again. Hee, here I come again. As soon as Yi Zan finished speaking, Monan threw a punch at Yi Zan to try and catch him off guard. However, Yi Zan's figure disappeared without a trace again. When he reappeared, he was outside the formation. Hee, I left again. If you have the ability, then come hit me. Bring it on. Yi Zan teased him with a cheeky smile, making Monan's expression even darker. FCK, are you kidding me? However, this was not the end. Yi Zan's figure flickered again, and in an instant, he once again entered Monan's formation. Before Monan could make a move, he appeared outside the formation once more. Come on, what can you do to me? Weren't you invincible inside your formation? Yi Zan mocked him again and again. He felt that this was really quite fun. Every time Yi Zan entered, Monan would try to attack, but then immediately realized that Yi Zan was no longer there. No matter how hard he tried, he could not even touch Yi Zan. He could only watch as Yi Zan kept toying with him. Damn it! Monan gritted his teeth in rage. He had lived for hundreds of years, but this was the first time he had been humiliated like this. Even though his heart was burning with anger, Monan had no idea what to do. He did not know how to restrain Yi Zan. After some thought, Monan laughed. Hee, it's really too funny. HMPH, are you laughing at yourself? Yi Zan asked, very dissatisfied. Why did this old man suddenly laugh out loud? It felt creepy. I'm just laughing because all of you people from Cloud Sky Peak are all cowards. All you know how to do is run. You don't even dare to confront me head on. Thinking back, your teacher was also like this. It seems that you also inherited your teacher's legacy. What a joke, Monan said sarcastically. He wanted to use this method to anger Yizan and force him into the formation to fight him. However, what made him feel very helpless was that Yizan's expression did not change at all after hearing this. After Yizan hovered in the air for a moment, seemingly thinking, he suddenly lit up and said, "You're a fat liar. If I remember correctly, you were stomped underneath my teacher's feet. How did you end up twisting the story like that? He didn't even bother killing you." Monan was infuriated, and he wished he could beat Yizan up right here and now. That was something that happened so long ago, yet someone was still spreading it around. What he had just said was a lie he had deliberately fabricated to anger Yizan. However, he had not expected Yizan to know about that incident back then. Damn it. After Monan cursed, he waved his right hand in the air and a sword appeared in his hand. Moments later, a bolt of purple lightning struck the sword, and he swung the sword, releasing a sword beam that crackled with lightning toward the crowd of Great Wilderness Divine Sect cultivators. Dodge quickly. After seeing this attack, everyone's expressions changed as they scampered away, trying to escape. However, the gulf between their cultivation levels and Monan's was light years away. It was not something they could withstand. At this critical moment, Yizan made his move. He pushed his hands forward and instantly unleashed an attack. Boom! His attack offset the powerful lightning sword beam. Immediately after, Yizan entered Monan's formation again, but he was not here to play around this time. Yizan said sarcastically as he hovered firmly inside the formation, "Old man, you're about to die, so I'll play with you one final time. Hurry up and use all of your strength. If you can really defeat me, the immortal divine sect might be able to escape this calamity." Hearing this, Monan's eyes lit up. Will you keep your word? What he was most afraid of was the sect's legacy being lost. Otherwise, he would have already shed all pretenses of cordiality. To continue the sect's legacy, he would even give up his own life. As such, he was more than willing to accept Yizan's offer. Yizan smiled calmly and replied, "I always keep my word. However, whether or not the immortal divine sect survives is now in your hands. As long as you can defeat me, you'll be able to protect the immortal divine sect. But if you fail, all will be lost. Haha, I'll take you up on that." With those words, Monan promptly attacked. He did not know why Yizan believed himself to be invincible, but this was his chance. This kid was indeed powerful, but it had not reached the level where he would admit defeat lying down just like that. He had been worried about Yizan when the God Sword had appeared, but Yizan was just an early-stage Supreme Realm cultivator, while he was a middle-stage Supreme Realm cultivator. In order to protect the legacy of the immortal divine sect, he would go all out. A massive palm imprint containing the full power of a middle-stage Supreme Realm expert struck out. At this moment, Monan no longer concealed his strength. His best bet was to strike and defeat Yizan before the latter started revealing his trump cards. After the first exchange, the two of them took a few steps back to catch their breath before clashing again. Within the lightning formation, Monan was indeed very powerful. 594 The reappearance of the strange power Part 1. Seeing the intense battle in the sky, the people below were all very surprised. They did not even blink, not willing to miss a single moment. Hiss. So powerful. A duel between two Supreme Realm experts defies imagination. I truly did not expect Martial Uncle Yi to be so powerful. His strength has even exceeded Martial Uncle Ao's. You know, I think he is the #1 expert of our sect now. As the people were discussing, even Ao Lei was very surprised. This junior brother of his had actually reached this level within such a short time. As long as Yizan is given some time, he might be able to reach the sealed immortal realm, which would be unprecedented in the East continent. The prosperity of our great wilderness divine sect is assured. Ao Lei was very excited at this time. After all, he was already old, and the chances of a drastic improvement in his cultivation level were not high. The only thing that he worried about was the great wilderness divine sect, and what would happen to it when he was no longer around. Would there be another expert who could support the great wilderness divine sect and help it to flourish? It was for this reason that he had been very concerned in recent years. No one knew what he had given up and what he had done for the sect. And at this moment, Gao Shun's mouth was similarly wide open as he watched the fight. Yizan had truly surpassed him in every aspect. Even though he knew that he would have no problems reaching the Supreme Realm himself now, he was certain that he would be no match for Yizan then as well. In the sky, the battle between the two sides was getting more and more intense, and the two of them had clashed over 1,000 times. Monan's face was gloomy. He had already discovered that Yizan remained calm throughout the fight, and it appeared that he had not used his full strength at all. At this time, he had already erupted with his full strength, yet he still could not suppress Yizan, which did not bode well for the outcome of this battle. According to the current situation, he would lose this battle without a doubt. Impossible. I can't allow this to continue. I have to win. Looking at the immortal divine sect that he had painstakingly helped to develop, Monan kept encouraging himself, psyching himself up to believe that he would definitely win. Boom. After a loud explosion, both sides took half a step back. Even though Yizan was in the middle of the lightning formation and was constantly numbed by the lightning, he did not look troubled at all, as if the whole thing was just a warm-up exercise. He had not gotten serious yet. Old man, is that all you're capable of? If that's all there is to you, then we should just declare the outcome right here and now. The immortal divine sect has been around for long enough. It's time to consign it to the history books, Yizan said expressionlessly. Moments later, he raised his right hand into the sky. Suddenly, the wind surged and clouds gathered, and an extremely powerful sword aura condensed. Monan's face paled. This can't be true. We've already been fighting for so long, but he has other tricks up his sleeve. A huge sword condensed in the sky. At that moment, Monan was truly at his wit's end. What could he do to change the outcome of this battle? He could clearly sense how powerful the sword was. With his current strength, he would not be able to block it. No, absolutely not. The immortal divine sect will not be destroyed like this. Monan bellowed, his eyes suddenly turning vicious. All of a sudden, an extremely strange aura emanated from him, and a black mist covered his body. Yizan frowned when he saw this. He muttered to himself when he saw Monan's current state, it's this strange power again. He discovered that the dense black mist was constantly surging out from the rear of the immortal divine sect. This surprised the others as well. Why was there such a strange thing hidden within the immortal divine sect? Zhu Yueyu's expression turned cold, her eyes filled with hatred. She was no stranger to this power. If I'm not wrong, the reason for the Berserk Beast's attack back then was due to this black mist. After saying this, Zhu Yueyu looked at Monan hatefully. The enemy she had been searching for was right before her eyes. Not only had Elder Taiyan used this strange power, but even Monan had begun to use it. This clearly meant that the immortal divine sect had been hiding this strange black mist. Sensing Zhu Yueyu's anger, Feng Xian tried to calm her down. Sister Yueyu, don't worry. Teacher will definitely help you take revenge. At this point, Zhu Yueyu was on the verge of losing control of herself. When she recalled the scene of her parents being brutally murdered, her entire body started to tremble. Soon, tears rolled down her cheeks, and she clenched her fists as she looked at Monan, who was hovering in the air. She knew that it was impossible for her to defeat Monan with her current cultivation, so she could only rely on her teacher. Her teacher had also promised her that he would definitely help her kill her enemy. Meanwhile, Monan's body was no longer visible. He was surrounded by the thick black mist, and the only thing visible were his eyes, which were glowing red. Hee, Yizan, you must be very surprised now, right? I too had yet to use my trump card. As soon as he finished speaking, Monan sucked the thick black mist into his body. 595 The Reappearance of the Strange Power Part 2. The moment the black mist was absorbed into his body, Monan's cultivation level rose, and reached the peak of the Supreme Realm. It had to be admitted that this strange power was truly terrifying. It was just that Yizan was not sure of its origins. That being said, that increase in power came at a cost. After absorbing this power, in the long run, even one's own consciousness would be devoured. It was somewhat similar to the forbidden technique that Gao Shun had used previously, except this one damaged the mind and consciousness instead of one's body and cultivation foundation. Yizan stared fixedly at Monan and suddenly thought of the Berserk Beast's attack back then. Where did you get that strange power? Was the Berserk Beast's attack some time ago you're doing? You guessed it right. That incident was indeed my handiwork. At that time, I was absorbing this strange power and needed to obtain a lot of blood in order to disperse the side effects. Without that incident, I'm afraid I would have already been controlled by this strange power. Now that he had reached the peak of the Supreme Realm, Monan was certain of his victory, and spoke openly. After all, he would just have to kill Yi Zan and everyone present to keep the news from spreading. At that moment, Mo Nan's face was dark as he gritted his teeth and said, "A long time ago, I was also a 1 in a million top genius. However, your damn teacher appeared and defeated me time and time again. He's always been above me for hundreds of years, making me the eternal runner-up. Ever since he defeated me, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't defeat him. Thus, I've lived in his shadow my whole life. When people talk about unparalleled experts, they will only mention Tian Zan's name, not mine." After saying that, Mo Nan's expression crumbled. Due to Tian Zan's existence and feats, no one would remember him. Yi Zan could actually understand his helplessness. After all, in this world, only the winner mattered. No one would care about the runner-up. It was for this reason that the other cultivators in the same generation as Tian Zan had all become nobodies in the minds of cultivators. Mo Nan had been nursing this grudge for a long time. And because of that, when you found this strange power, in order to absorb this power into your body, you caused that incident. Yi Zan asked with a cold expression. He clearly remembered that Zhu Yueyu's parents had died in the incident, along with countless other innocent people. It was thanks to the contamination of that strange power that the beasts invaded the territory of the humans and caused a massacre. Hee. Mo Nan laughed triumphantly, before continuing, "So what? My life was supposed to be over, but I discovered this strange power by chance. In a desert, there is a secret realm that is connected to a strange realm. In this secret realm, this strange power emerged. I'm sure you've experienced how terrifying this strange power is. It took me a long time to create a small opening to the secret realm." Yi Zan was stunned, but before he could say anything, Mo Nan continued, "After obtaining this strange power, I went into seclusion to research how to use it. To ensure that nothing went wrong, I didn't absorb it rashly. Instead, I allowed my disciple to find the location of the secret realm. As I expected, he was overjoyed to obtain this power and absorbed it into his body without thinking. At that moment, Yi Zan had goosebumps all over his body. The disciple he was talking about was probably Elder Taiyan. Was Mo Nan's heart black? He had actually harmed his own disciple like this in order to research the effects of the strange power. How could he be so heartless? Yi Zan thought of his two disciples. He would never be able to do such an evil thing to them. Yi Zan's blood ran cold. Meeting such a teacher was truly unlucky. Mo Nan was not bothered by Elder Taiyan's death at all. After all, only his cultivation and the immortal divine sect's legacy mattered to him. He believed that this strange power would allow him to preserve both. After my disciple absorbed this strange power, I also discovered the side effects of absorbing this power. Therefore, after painstaking research and looking through information, I finally found a way to deal with it. This method is to use fresh blood to refine and transform one's body, baptizing it with the strange power. 596 The Reappearance of the Strange Power Part 3. At that very moment, Mo Nan looked like a lunatic, his eyes glowing red. The higher one's cultivation level, the more powerful the strange power absorbed by this method will be. I didn't want to use this trump card so early. After all, I haven't finished absorbing all of the blood and strange power. After saying this, Mo Nan's gaze toward Yi Zan bristled with killing intent. It was all his fault. If it wasn't for you, how could I have revealed my trump card so early? However, it's fine. I'll absorb all of your blood too to create my demonic body. As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Nan immediately launched an attack. A large fist imprint filled with the strange power was sent flying toward Yi Zan. At this moment, the surroundings began to shake, and spatial cracks began to appear in the sky. Yi Zan did not choose to take the attack head-on. Instead, he activated his fiery phoenix divine power and dodged the attack. At the same time, he swung his sword at Mo Nan. Mo Nan roared, and a white skull covered in black mist appeared. The white skull flew directly toward Yi Zan's sword beam, opened its mouth wide, and bit down on it. Boom! Everyone's expression changed drastically. They felt a pressure that came from deep within their souls. After absorbing that strange power, Mo Nan's combat strength had truly improved by leaps and bounds. Even Ao Lei and Yi Feng could feel the pressure. Although they were all very nervous at this time, their eyes had not left the battle in the sky. The battle between the Great Wilderness Divine Sect and the Immortal Divine Sect was no longer something they could influence. It all hinged upon the outcome of the battle in the sky. If Yi Zan won, then the Great Wilderness Divine Sect would naturally triumph. However, if he was defeated, it would probably mean the end of their sect as well. At this moment, everyone from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect was praying silently in their hearts, hoping that Yi Zan would win. Zhu Guiyu and Feng Xian were also clutching each other's hands tightly as they stared at the battle. Their teacher was in a death match to decide their fate and the fate of their sect. After Mo Nan dealt with Yi Zan's sword beam, he did not stop and immediately launched another attack. Brat, die! He unleashed one attack after another, not wanting to give Yi Zan a moment's rest. This had always been his way of doing things. He would pursue victory and would never give his enemy the chance to turn the tables. After dozens of exchanges, Yi Zan quickly found an opportunity to forcefully neutralize Mo Nan's punch. Upon the collision between their fists, Yi Zan's right hand felt numb. After casually shaking his right hand, the corners of Yi Zan's mouth curled up slightly, looking very excited. Hee, not bad. So this is what your demonic body looks like. Although Yi Zan had been constantly dodging just now, he was not afraid. He had been searching for Mo Nan's flaws, and he also wanted to see what was so extraordinary about his demonic body. Yi Zan had already figured it out, which was why he was so excited. Mo Nan's demonic body was indeed very powerful, and he could even be considered the strongest enemy that Yi Zan had ever encountered. After noticing that Yi Zan was smiling for no reason, Mo Nan felt that something was not right. What are you laughing about, brat? Hee, I'm just laughing at you for deceiving yourself. Ignorant brat. Mo Nan was enraged, but Yi Zan did not panic at all and continued languidly, do you really think that I can't defeat you just because you've cultivated that demonic body and have been strengthened by that strange power? Do you really think you're invincible? What do you mean, old man? If my teacher could suppress you back then, I can do it too. In any case, you can confess your crimes and sins to the King of Hell. You've spent far too long in the land of the living. After that, Yi Zan rushed into the sky. The lightning bolts from the formation could not hurt or hinder him at all. Yi Zan had changed into his rainbow robes. Like a god descending upon the world, he dispersed the black mist that was condensing in the sky. At this moment, the spectators on the ground were all extremely shocked. Don't tell me. Aolei had already noticed that Yi Zan's clothes were extraordinary. He had another trump card. At this moment, everyone discovered that Yi Zan had not used his full strength yet. Otherwise, why would Yi Zan keep dodging Mo Nan's attacks? Even if he just stood there and allowed Mo Nan to hit him, wearing those clothes, he would still be unharmed. Mo Nan was dazed when he saw this. This can't be true. Why does he have such a powerful defensive treasure? Hee, don't you know that seeing is believing? Old man, how do you want to die? I can grant you your wish. Without waiting for Mo Nan to reply, Yi Zan swung the god's sword and once again dispersed the black mist. In the blink of an eye, the god's sword emitted a shocking red light. The god's sword originated from ancient times. The killing intent it emitted made people feel like they were walking past the gates of hell. Everyone unconsciously held their breaths and looked at Yi Zan. Moments later, he started to emit immortal energy, and rays of divine light were released, instantly dispersing more of the surrounding black mist. 597 Killing Mo Nan. Everyone from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect was familiar with this scene. After all, this was the attack that Yi Zan had used to deal with Elder Taiyan. When he faced Mo Nan, he was actually using the same move again. The only difference was that he was not using the same sword. This aura is really too strong. Even though I'm many miles away, I still feel like I'm being suppressed to the point where it's hard to breathe. Perhaps even an ancient realm expert would find it difficult to deal with Martial Uncle Yi's attack. While the crowd was discussing, Mo Nan's arrogance had long since vanished, and was replaced by a panicked expression. This can't be happening. I don't believe it. How did this brat obtain such a powerful divine power? After he shook himself awake, he realized that, from the beginning to the end, Yi Zan had never used his full strength and had only been teasing him. At this very moment, he felt as if his dignity had been crushed and pounded mercilessly. Fury erupted from the bottom of his heart, and Mo Nan pushed the strange power to its limits, becoming even stronger. Bring it on. I'll behead all of you today. As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Nan charged at Yi Zan without hesitation. A white skill emitting thick black mist condensed and bit at Yi Zan. In the sky, Yi Zan's expression did not change at all as he gently swung the god's sword, splitting the white skull in half effortlessly. Meanwhile, Mo Nan staggered and vomited blood several times, falling to the ground. Ancestor. When they saw their ancestor being beaten to the ground, the immortal divine sect cultivators cried out in panic. If Mo Nan lost, their lives were forfeit. Some people were already feeling regretful. Why did they choose to become disciples of the immortal divine sect? PFF'd. After spitting out a few more mouthfuls of blood, Monan slowly crawled out of a deep pit and onto the ground. He could not even stand up. He felt as if all the bones in his body had been shattered by Yizan's attack. Not only did that sword harm him physically, but it also attacked his soul. Even now, he still found it unbelievable. He had already cultivated the demonic body, so why could he not withstand a single attack from Yizan? At this moment, he felt dispirited. When he saw how flustered his sect's disciples were, he let out a deep sigh. He was unwilling to see the sect's legacy and existence disappear in front of his very eyes. Moments later, Yizan slowly floated in front of him and pointed the god's sword at him from a distance. He said with a cold expression, "Old man, have you finally come to your senses now?" Monan was dejected to hear those words. After all, he had already given his all in today's battle. However, in the end, he still failed, and had no chance of winning. "Hurry up and make your move. I know my own sins, and have never hoped to be pardoned. In order to refine the demonic body, I threw away any care for my own life. Even if I were to go to the 9th layer of hell and suffer all kinds of torture, I would not regret it." After saying that, Monan even looked relieved. He believed that the reason why he did this was not to make himself stronger, but to protect the immortal divine sect. Yizan was still staring at him with a cold gaze. This old man only had himself to blame for this. He might believe that his actions were justified despite killing countless innocent people, but so what? It was true that the mystic world where the strong preyed on the weak, and no one would uphold justice for them. However, this also applied when he was the weaker party. One had to win to be right. At this moment, Yizan remained silent as he stabbed the god's sword into Monan's abdomen, which devoured all of the black mist in his body. The demonic body that Monan had been so proud of could not hinder the god's sword, and was instantly torn apart. Because of his previous experience with Elder Taiyan, Yizan was not careless, and immediately surged with power again to shatter Monan's soul, lest he revive with the help of the strange power. He could not afford to leave behind any seeds of trouble for the future, as it might come back to bite him later on. At this moment, snowflakes began to fall from the sky. It was a very strange sight. Yizan's movements were swift. He pulled the god's sword horizontally, and Monan's body instantly disintegrated and turned into ashes. The strange power was also completely devoured by the god's sword. Even his soul was gone. No matter how powerful the strange power was, it would not be able to save Monan's life. After taking care of Monan, Yizan waved his hand and left. The legs of the immortal divine sect cultivators were already trembling. 598 Extermination. However, in a last-ditch effort, or perhaps out of some sense of final bravado, many of them began to fight back. Seeing this, Aulay felt rather emotional. After a long sigh, he said, "Kill them. Get rid of them as quickly as possible." The enmity between the two sides could no longer be resolved. Showing mercy to the enemy was only being cruel to oneself. If he let them off today out of kindness, it would only cause future problems when they returned for revenge. Lin Dong, who was among the immortal divine sect cultivators, watched everything with a panicked expression. When he saw that Yizan had already turned around and left, he squeezed his way forward and shouted, "Lord Gao, you have to save me." After hearing his voice, Gao Shun turned to look at Lin Dong. However, upon seeing that it was Lin Dong, he immediately shifted his gaze away. A long time ago, he had saved Lin Dong in Qingyang City, and had suffered a great loss as a result. As such, he had already repaid the Lin family for the financial contributions they had given him. There was no longer any obligation for him to act. After all, this matter was of great importance, and his personal matters should not be prioritized over the sect's grudges. Seeing this, Lin Dong was filled with regret. Why had he not chosen the Great Wilderness Divine Sect and picked the Immortal Divine Sect instead? At that time, he had believed the rumors that the Great Wilderness Divine Sect had declined and was only a shadow of its former glory. For this reason, he became a disciple of the Immortal Divine Sect, and was even accepted as a disciple by an elder. However, his master had already been killed, and he would perish together with the sect today. At this moment, he saw a beautiful figure arrive in front of him. This person was Zhu Guiyu, the one he had provoked in Qingyang City. Zhu Guiyu's eyes were filled with hatred, and without even blinking, she took his life with a single strike. After killing Lin Dong, Zhu Guiyu turned around to look for other immortal divine sect cultivators to kill. Today was the day of her revenge. However, After seeing this, Feng Xian worriedly pulled on her master's sleeves and said, "Teacher, is Yuyu going to be okay? Will this affect her in the future?" Yi Zan shook his head and replied, "It's fine. Let her do what she wants. She has to vent all of her deep-seated emotions in order to break the shackles in her heart. After all, her whole family died during that incident. If she doesn't get her revenge, it will plague her in the future." Yi Zan looked around and began to sigh. When he had first taken Zhu Yuyu as his disciple, he had promised to help her take revenge. He had finally fulfilled his promise. Seeing the massacre happening in front of her, Feng Xian felt her heart tremble. This was the first time she had seen such a bloody scene since she was young. She felt nauseated, and was on the verge of throwing up. She finally realized how cruel the world was. "Teacher, are we going to exterminate them?" Feng Xian asked in a trembling voice. Hearing this, Yi Zan turned around and looked at Feng Xian. Seeing that her face was a little pale, he said, "Xian, there's something you need to understand. If you want to establish yourself in the mystic world, you must not show mercy. The grudges between our two sects can't be settled through negotiation. If I had lost the battle just now, then the people who would have been slaughtered would have been us. We must never be soft-hearted when dealing with our enemies. This has always been the practice of our sect, as well as all other sects in the mystic world. Do you understand?" After hearing Yi Zan's words, Feng Xian's expression finally relaxed. She nodded, indicating that she understood. Then, from the corner of his eye, Yi Zan spotted a crow's nest on a big tree in the Immortal Divine Sect's grounds. He flew up and took all the crow eggs inside, instantly shattering them with his spiritual power. Do you understand? This is what is meant by exterminating them. Seeing this, Feng Xian was dumbfounded. She did not know what to say. This was simply crazy. Even the crow eggs in the Immortal Divine Sect were to be destroyed. In that case, all of the animals inside would have to be killed. Looking at his disciple's dumbfounded expression, Yi Zan smiled and said, "All right, I won't say any more. Some things have to be experienced personally. After you see it a few times, you'll get used to it." After saying that, Yi Zan patted her head and turned his gaze back to the massacre in front of him. Aolei and the others also came over to Yi Zan at this time. Even now, they were still very surprised by his strength. No one could have expected that the chief who was once the weakest in the Great Wilderness Divine Sect would become the strongest. It seemed that the legacy of Cloud Sky Peak would continue. "Hee, junior brother Yi, congratulations. You have become the most powerful person in the Great Wilderness Divine Sect," Aolei said with a very happy smile. He was actually happy that Yi Zan had already surpassed him. Yi Zan was still young, and had unlimited potential, unlike someone like him who had almost reached the upper limit of his cultivation path. As long as Yi Zan was here, it was impossible for the Great Wilderness Divine Sect to fall. When he heard his senior brother's words, Yi Zan politely returned the greeting, "Senior brother Ao, don't joke with me. I only reached the Supreme Realm by chance. How could I be worthy of the title of the strongest in the sect? Senior brother Ao, you will always be number 1. 599 God-slaying village. Hee, you're flattering me, junior brother." Aolei laughed happily. He did not take Yi Zan's words to heart and simply laughed it off. Even though there were occasional conflicts and competition between the peaks, they were all part of the same sect. In the face of danger, everyone would immediately unite and cooperate. At this time, Yi Feng also piped up, "This is really beyond my expectations. Senior brother Tian Zan actually recruited such a terrifying genius for our sect before he passed away. Junior brother, you might be the youngest Supreme Realm cultivator in the history of the East Continent. With you around, I can finally put my mind at ease and focus on my cultivation." Hearing this, Yi Zan was momentarily stunned. After a while, he quickly greeted Yi Feng. "Yi Zan greets Martial Uncle Yi." All right, there's no need for pleasantries. With your level of talent, I'm afraid it won't be long before I have to bow to you when I see you," Yi Feng said with emotion. "Martial Uncle Yi, don't tease me. If I really make you bow to me, my lifespan will be shortened," Yi Zan replied with a smile. Yi Feng simply laughed and turned to Aolei. "All right, little Ao, the matters here have more or less been settled. I'll bring a group of our cultivators back to the sect with me first." "All right, Martial Uncle Yi." After a short while, Yi Feng brought more than half of the people back to the Great Wilderness Divine Sect. The war between the two sects had come to an end. Everyone in the Immortal Divine Sect had been killed. No one survived. It was time to clean up the battlefield, and those who stayed behind had already started to harvest the treasures and resources. In any case, the immortal divine sect had existed for a long time, so there was plenty of loot to go around. Yi Zan, however, was unbothered by this, as none of the treasures caught his eye. He simply hovered indifferently in the air. Zhu Yueyu's eyes were still red after the massacre. She stood beside Yi Zan expressionlessly. Seeing this, Yi Zan also felt very distressed. Even if he had killed Mo Nan, so what? Zhu Yueyu's parents were not coming back. Yi Zan rubbed Zhu Yueyu's head and said softly, Yueyu, there are some things that you have to let go of sooner or later. The path of cultivation is a long one, and your parents would not want to see you like this. After hearing this, Zhu Yueyu wiped her tears away and looked at Yi Zan. Her eyes seemed to regain their light. I understand, teacher. I've already taken my revenge, so I've fulfilled one of my wishes. People should look forward. I'll pull myself together and work hard on my cultivation. I don't expect myself to be as powerful as you, teacher, but I hope that I'll be able to help you in the future. Zhu Yueyu clenched her fist and said. After hearing this, Yi Zan did not say anything. Instead, he turned to Ao Lei and said, Senior brother Ao, there's nothing else for me to do here, so I'll be accompanying my disciples back to the sect first. All right, have a safe journey, junior brother Yi, Ao Lei replied, before once again directing his focus toward the battlefield cleanup work. Hearing this, Yi Zan waved to his two disciples and flew away. Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian followed him quickly. He was not in a hurry this time, so he did not use the fiery phoenix technique, and simply flew along at a leisurely pace. Just like that, after a few hours, they arrived at a village. God-slaying village. Yi Zan was momentarily stunned when he saw the village's signboard. Why did it sound so scary? Hurry up and run. Don't even think about escaping. I'll catch you and beat you up today. Stop right there. While Yi Zan was in a daze, the voices of two children could be heard. On the pathway near the village entrance, a child seemed to be frightened by something and started to run. Hurry up and run. Why is this silly girl here again? One of the boys shouted loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared into the streets. The other children also looked very nervous, running for their lives, as if there was a monster chasing them. Seeing this scene, Yi Zan was dumbfounded. Then, he turned around to look for what was chasing them. Behind the group of children, a petite girl with an angry face was shouting and chasing after the boys. Her arms were flailing wildly, as if she wanted to grab all the boys. It was a funny scene. Stop right there. The little girl kept shouting as she chased them. She did not even notice Yi Zan standing in front of her and tried to run past him. Yi Zan was stunned. He grabbed her, but her hands and feet were still in the same running motion, which made her look even more ridiculous. This little girl was too silly. She had already been caught, but she actually did not notice. When she finally reacted, she let out a cry and realized that her hands and feet were already off the ground. Had she become so powerful? Had she actually learned to fly? He looked at the little girl in his hand. She still had not realized that he had lifted her up. She was still waving her hands and feet and was still shouting at the other children. 600 Little Potato Part 1. Looking at the girl, Yi Zan did not know what to say. Whose child was this? How could she be so silly? She was still young, at most 6 years old, but she could actually scare away a group of children who were older than her. Seeing the little girl in Yi Zan's hand, Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian were also smiling. Feng Xian even came over and pinched the girl's dirty little face, asking, Little friend, what are you doing here? Where's your family? After hearing this, the little girl finally came back to her senses and glared at Yi Zan with her teeth bared. She raised her head high, clenched her fists, and shouted, What do you want to do, you bad man? I'm warning you, don't mess with me, or I'll beat you down with one punch. HMPH. In this village, I'm the overlord, and none of the children can stop me. Didn't you guys see the children earlier? I've beaten every one of them before. Hee hee, I'm very strong, right? After hearing this, Yi Zan's face twitched a few times. This little girl was really headstrong. She beat up all of the children in the village. Where did she learn such behavior from? The little girl clenched her fists tightly and looked at Yi Zan smugly, seemingly very satisfied with her glorious achievement. Little girl, where did you learn all this from? Why are you calling yourself the overlord of the village? Yi Zan asked as he wiped the sweat off his face. After hearing this, the little girl thought for a moment before she said seriously, A beggar grandpa in the village told me this. He said that if I can make all of the other children in the village submit to me, I'll be the overlord of the village. Now, all of the kids in the village have to run away when they see me. They don't dare to fight me at all. Hee hee, aren't I awesome? Yizan did not know what to say. In a sense, she was right. Looking at the little girl's clothes and the dirt on her face, she did not look like a child from the village. Instead, she looked like a vagabond. However, looking at her, it seemed that she did not care about these things at all. She was even quite happy. After briefly examining the little girl's strength, Yizan was shocked. Isn't she a little too strong? Even though this little girl only looked to be about 6 years old, her strength was much greater than an average adult. Although she had not set foot on the path of cultivation, her strength was enough to lift a heavy object weighing more than 10,000 jin. Heavens, it was no wonder she could scare away all of the other children in the village. With her strength, such a feat was not surprising at all. At this moment, Yizan asked curiously, "Little girl, what's your name?" The little girl was dumbfounded when she heard that. She fiddled with her hair for a bit, and then said with a serious face, "My name is Shang Yun. But that old man in the village always calls me Little Tigress. I think that name is really too unpleasant to hear, so I named myself Little Potato." "You can just call me Little Potato," the little girl replied with a serious expression. After hearing this, Yizan laughed. Someone actually called her Little Tigress. It was quite appropriate. Yizan even thought that the old man this little girl was talking about should be quite interesting. Feng Xian also chuckled. She pinched her little face and asked, "Shangyun sounds like a nice name, but why did you call yourself Little Potato?" The little girl lowered her head in deep thought and said, "Ahem, I think that potatoes are really delicious. I want to eat potatoes every day, so I changed my name to Little Potato." After hearing these words, Feng Xian was stunned. However, after a while, she understood. Were potatoes really that delicious? Looking around, Zhu Yuyu was deeply shocked. There were actually so many refugees in this god-slaying village. They were probably all displaced because of the berserk beast's attack. If she was not wrong, this girl was probably one of them, and did not have anything good to eat on a daily basis, which was probably why she felt that potatoes were the most delicious things she had ever eaten. This little girl was really simple, saying whatever came to her mind straightforwardly. Zhu Yuyu walked to the girl's side and gently smoothed her dirty hair. She said, "Little Potato, why are you wandering around by yourself? Where are your family members?" Upon hearing this, the little girl innocently said, "I remember that a long time ago, many beasts attacked our village. My family was killed by these beasts. I was hiding in the closet. The beasts were so stupid that they couldn't find me. If it had been anyone else who had suffered such a tragedy, they would not be able to let it go." Zhu Yuyu was a living example of this. However, looking at the girl, it seemed that the absence of her family did not affect her at all. Perhaps she was still young and did not know what these things truly meant. Looking at this little girl, Zhu Yuyu's heart was filled with emotions as she spoke with a tender expression, "The old grandpa you mentioned, did you follow him here? Where is he now?" "He's gone now. I remember one night, he baked a potato for me and then fell asleep. No matter how hard I shook him, he wouldn't wake up. He's smelly all over, just like my family." Yizan and the others did not know what to say. This little girl's background was too pitiful. Zhu Yuyu's heart was already overflowing with compassion. She looked at Yizan with a pleading face and said, "Teacher, can we bring her back to Cloud Sky Peak?" Yizan looked at the little girl and smiled without saying anything. At the little girl and